Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you all for coming to this opening. I'll explain what it's all about shortly, but I wasn't quite sure whether I should put my earplugs in for that one. Very enclosed space, but thank you guys, that was wonderful. At the heart of every museum, you have a number of displays. Some of those displays are permanent displays, like the one that you see behind you, and they explain the history of the Lancashire Fusiliers and the Royal Regimental Fusiliers. But if we didn't keep the museum live, if we didn't change the exhibitions that we've got, people wouldn't come again, and it wouldn't become an intimate part of the community, and we wouldn't be able to encourage individuals to see what actually the army is all about. And so what you see in front of you here is an extremely important part of the museum displays, of which we have two temporary exhibitions, and they change over on a regular basis every 3 to 4 months. So this is a really nice display which you see in front of you, which has been put in place by Phil behind us. He's done all the work here in order to make sure it's happened. So what is it about? Well, it's about something that's at the core of the regiment and the army, and that's regimental bands. Now, regimental bands will go back several hundred years, and they've always been intimate to the life and the soul of a regiment or a battalion. In days gone by, not so much now, each battalion in the infantry had its own band, and they were extremely important for a number of reasons. The obvious one is what we've seen here today, the ceremonial component, where they played beautiful music and they made sure that any event that took place in the battalion or the regiment was actually supported in the maximum way to increase the profile of that regiment. But also, one of the really important things is that they were important to the morale of the individual soldiers. So when things got rough, tough or difficult, the band performed within the battalion or within the regiment involved and ensured that all the time the morale of the regiment and battalion was kept up. So they're extremely important. They don't only play traditional music, nowadays they play every form of music, but I'll return to that in a short while. The next thing is, bands keep the army in the public eye, generally. And they're extremely important so that people realise that the army is still here and are an intimate part of the community. So these bands go out and they play regularly for the general public. And you have essentially two types of bands. You have regular bands and territorial army bands who are volunteers, but then you have members like the people we've got behind you here, the association bands who are completely voluntary and do it in their own time. So there's a spectrum and a plethora. Now, I mentioned a number of things, but also key to the army is the secondary role that bands perform. And bands are intimate to the operational role of the army as well. They are trained as medical personnel and stretcher bearers, and if a major battle occurs or someone deploys on operations, then the bands go out into the battlefield and they recover all of the casualties and dead individuals that exist as a result of that conflict taking place. So they have a true operational role, and they're trained in doing that alongside their musical profession. Now, I feel quite close to them because, unfortunately, about 10 years ago I was involved in reshaping army bands and put forward the paper and got the agreement to make them what they are. The big change that's taken place over the last 50 years or so is that previously I mentioned to you that bands were unique to battalions and each battalion had its own. Today that's not the case, unfortunately, and bands now are an army asset and controlled centrally. So big corps, which are bigger than regiments or battalions, have bands, and there are bands affiliated to regiments as well, and our band is part of the band of the Queen's Division. But they're still an intimate part, and they come and play regularly for the battalions and the regiment. Bands also have primary and secondary instruments. I think they probably have tertiary instruments as well. Many of them play three, and I mentioned to you earlier, they not only play traditional military music, but they form pop groups, they form quartets and orchestras, and they go out and they play on various occasions. So, you know, they are a whole profession in their own right, and they are trained today at a place called Kneller Hall down in Twickenham. So it is a profession in its own right, and we thought it very important to mark that profession through this temporary exhibition that we've got here. So I'm going to shut up now, because I think I've said enough, and I'm going to hand over to Phil, who's been intimately involved in everything that's been involved here, and let you say a few intimate words about what's happened here and how it came together. Phil, over to you. I thought you were going to ask me to play that for a minute.
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you to see so many people here for attending. Karen was mentioning one or two things I've got on my list. But just to start with, the stage in this exhibition, it's been a long-standing ambition of mine. And it's actually 10 years to come to fruition. I've never realised how difficult it was writing these boards, for instance. I think I started off with a university-type degree dissertation. How many words was it? And I've had to reduce it all to 12 words with less than 300 words on each one. So it's become a great lesson in how to say as much as you can in as few words as possible. The exhibition is about the Lancashire Fusiliers only. And even within the Lancashire Fusiliers, it's only about the regular battalions, 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. We haven't touched the militia, or the volunteers, or the territorials, or the PALs, or the Royal Regimental Fusiliers. So there's at least 2 more exhibitions worth. Yes. And I say, what about the fanfare trumpets, which do actually feature on board, number 8, I think. There we are, on the regimental music. These trumpets we are playing here were presented to the Lancashire Fusiliers in 1953. There were various fundraising efforts, officers, sergeants, and whatnot. And these were presented, as I say, in 1953. And there was a set of banners. Now, all this is explained on there. The reason for me mentioning this is, when the Lancashire Fusiliers were disbanded, the instruments sort of disappeared and went to a territorial armed band in Coventry. We have recovered them since, quite recently, and they've come back to the spiritual home, which is Lancashire. We've had a new set of banners done for them. On one side is the Royal Regimental Fusiliers crest. Can we just turn around there? And on the other side, we've got various other crests on, which are sort of the information around us there, which is the affiliated shape. Other Fusilier regiments and things to do. Something got on with the very coat of arms.
This one here.
There it is. So all these are not the original banners, they are new ones. But they still fulfil the same purpose. I need to make a few thanks now. First of all, it goes to our graphic designer, Derek Poole. You won't believe this. This is the first exhibition he's actually done. And he's done an absolutely marvellous job. So I think he's got a career now in exhibition panels and whatnot. I'm so pleased with it all. The way he's done it, and you look at the back of the boards here, you can see bits of other photographs in faded. So it's not just the words on or the pictures. Have a look at the background, see what's there. Unfortunately, Darren can't be with us today, which is a shame, but he came and had a look at it the other day. Right, other people to thank. My right-hand man, on my right-hand woman, Doreen dear. She laboured long and hard. Let me introduce you to saxophone Sam. Why is it called saxophone Sam? He's playing the saxophone. And second, the tunic came from Sam Jackson, who was in the Fusilier Corps of Drums. And he wore this when he was in the Lancashire Fusiliers in the 1960s. Now, if you see Sam today, well, we're very grateful to Sam for a number of reasons. Because it's a drummer's jacket, it's actually got all the loops and the things for attaching all these epaulets and dress cords on. So it saved quite a lot of work. Doreen has worked on it, and she's tidied up the buttons and sewn badges on and made sure everything is secure. But more than this, the white cross belt, which I had in my loft, which was worn at that time, it's a buff leather one, and we stripped it right back to the buff leather. And we thought, what are we going to do with it now? Because we've got to turn it white. But we need some blanco. It doesn't exist. Anyway, after much umming and ahhing, I talked to a chap in South Shields who actually makes these kind of things for the modern army. And I talked it through with him, and he said, just rub it over, he said, with a bit of fine sandpaper, and then just put the old whitening on. So we did, or Dory did. And how many coats did you put on?
3, 4.
Well, more than that.
5, yeah, we kept touching up, didn't we?
Yeah, but we kept putting more and more on. And I'm really pleased because it turned out whiter than I ever thought it would. Now we also have to thank Colonel Eric, of course, because he's lent us, and some of the members of the band have lent us various bits, the saxophone, the dress cords. One of the girls in the band gave me the saxophone sling. She said it was pulled on the neck too much on that one. So that was our labour of love. Excuse me, look on the list. Dennis, of course. Must thank Dennis, because at the back of the zone here, we have an audio-visual display. Now, Dennis has put together a series of photographs backed up with music from the LP that the Lancashire Fusiliers band with in 1968. So we'll set it going afterwards, and it just goes round on a loop. How many hours, Dennis?
Quite a few. Yeah. Trial and error.
It works, and it works very well. I'd like to thank our colleagues, Sarah and David, who put all the boards up on Tuesday, which was a great help to me. I'd like to thank everyone for their encouragement and all that, and I'm very pleased with that. Ruth Langton and Haywood will lent us 1 or 2 bits of the saxophone, just to make it complete. I'd like to thank the lads and lady here for coming today and helping make this, especially Kate, especially for me.
Yes.
I can rest easy now.
Yes.
And just to finally say from me, have a look round. And if you've not been before to the museum, we'll look at the rest of it as well. Thank you, Helen.
Can I just say before everybody goes, we've got a few presentations to make. Yes,
Dory.
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 Oh, there you go.
And then we've
It's
got
a very
And they
nice.
join every moment of it.
I'll find something else next week.
That's not what she told me. We've got a bottle of fizzy for all the trumpet players. Thank you so much for coming. It's made it really special for us. Thank you.
The big straw. You want a
I'm
big
not sure
straw?
how you're going to carry on with all your Eric's in charge.
But ladies and gentlemen, please take some time to have a look around now. Time's yours, and there is refreshments, coffee, and some food laid on just down the corridor there.
Wendy's
Do
homemade
help yourself.
scones, so please make sure you get some to stay out.
And if you want to see the rest of the museum, by all means do so as well. Oh, there's one more final thing, which I'll just say. 1 minute. For those of you who don't know, we received our lottery application grant to continue the first floor. So the project upstairs is a 1.2 million project to renovate upstairs, which was originally part of renovating the building in the museum, but we had to cancel that because, as you know, we went from 2 million up to 4.2 million. It was a difficult enough job to get that together. However, in January of next year, we're going to start building upstairs, and that's going to have 2 things in there. It's going to have 3 really. It's going to have an open archive to the general public for the remainder of all of our displays. It's going to have a corporate entertainment capability which will seat up to 200 people, 180 people, and then it's going to have an educational facility as well. So I just thought I'd let you know what's going on up there, and in the end of next year we hope it will be open and you'll all come and see it. Thanks again.
Doctors that are around, there's a gentleman from the Berry Times here taking pictures, so if you don't want to be in the Berry Times, please let yourself know to him. And we've also got our own photographer going around taking pictures, so if you don't want to be on any of our marketing materials, then please let me know, because I do use them on everything. You'll end up on the website.